today's topic is about aging and longevity. My guest is James Flaherty, and we discuss the various topics related to aging and embracing one's age and living a long life. We also touch on a few historical events like the Cold War and World War II, and the impact of technology on society and the importance of having a purpose in life. Before we get started with all that stuff, I want to remind you, if you are a pet owner, please be responsible with pet owner and have your pets spayed or neutered. Jim Flaherty, and you are the author of 4 books, and you do have a forthcoming book, Living Longevity. Was that what it's called?
Loving Longevity.
Loving.
And the subtitle is I'm 89 and have a 10-year plan.
You know, this definitely means I'm going to be asking you some questions about loving and living that good life.
Good.
So, do you mind if I call you Jim?
No, please do.
Okay. Yeah, we'll keep it nice and informal. I'm Chuck.
Chuck. Yeah.
Yes. So, Jim, before we really get into your forthcoming book, can you give us a little bit of a secret about you and this great lifestyle that you're living? And I say lifestyle because you appear to be very healthy. You appear to be very happy. I'm not talking about wealth and riches, monetarily. I'm just talking this happiness that you seem to be exuding.
Yeah. Well, 2 things. I'm going to tell you a story relating back to my late great mother. Even at 89, I had a mother. And I remember my father died, unfortunately, when I was very young. He was the district attorney of Miami when I was a little boy. And so I was raised by a very smart dame. She was terrific. And she had 2 special lessons that I remember from her. She told me I was probably in college when she laid these on me that I'm now remembering. She said, every morning of your life, you're going to have to greet and confront your biggest critic, the most severe, critical, and demanding person in your life. It's that person in your bathroom mirror. And you can either look at them and go, good God, another day, or smile bravely and cheerfully and say, good God, another day, and go after it.
Yes.
And I do that. I know it sounds maybe a bit hokey, but I never feel that. I do not wake up depressed. I never do. I wake up thinking, hot damn, I have another day, another opportunity, every day is a gift to me. And I think it's another opportunity to see, hear, taste, touch, share, love, speak, to embrace life. And so therefore, I'm so happy to be part of it that I really try to make the day count. I make a list at night of the 6 or 7 things that are most crucial to me the next day. So I try to get those going first thing. And here I am at this age. This is my schedule, and every line is a day. And I tend to live by it. And I change the schedule a few times a week to keep it up to date. The other thing is I was raised with the Golden Rule. And the Golden Rule, which started way back before Confucius' time and has been used by every organized religion in the world, has evolved over the years to a wonderful idea, but very awkward language. The existing Golden Rule is do unto others as you would have others do unto you. And if you lay that on a 4 or 5-year-old, they'll go, huh? It makes no sense. So I, being a writer, I rewrote it when I had children, when I had little children. My babies are now 62 and 64, and I'm still very close to them. But I rewrote it for them and for myself. You get what you give. And so I'd say, if you give a sympathetic ear, a generous heart, a meaningful smile, a warm hug, guess what? You get it back. If all you do is bitch and moan and complain and demand, that also comes back and bites you somewhere south of the border behind you. You know, I mean, so life is easy. Give good, get good. By living that way, I know it sounds a little Mary Poppins-ish, but it really isn't. It's much, much easier when you know if you do something good for somebody and you expect nothing in return, it makes you feel good about who you are and what you're doing in life and how you are contributing. The rest of it is, and I say it when I'm mentoring kids, I know you work a lot with helping teachers in the K to 12 years, which I think is crucially important. And I love at this age to go in and mentor. Some of the best private schools in the world are all around where I live. And I sometimes go in and get to speak to the seniors and to the business groups to mentor them. And I say, let me tell you a great line from Noel Coward, of all people, that I embraced when I was a young man, and I still believe it and love it. Work is more fun than fun. You know? And I said, life is so worthwhile, you know, rather than just spend it floating around a pool with a margarita in your hand, which I did all that. I had a villa in Acapulco for many years. I mean, I've had a very lovely and interesting life. But I could do that for about 15 minutes and then say, okay, now what? Let's get off our duff and get busy, do something. Let's write a book or produce something. And because of that, I've had a number of careers. You know, I came to New York out of college, and I think I was taking home $200 a month after taxes, and with no allowance from home, and living in New York City. So was I poor? Yeah. Did it bother me? No. I thought it was great. I was on my own. I was earning a living. I was a copywriter. I couldn't even see the bottom rung of that imaginary ladder. It was so far up there. By age 33, I was in a corner office in New York as a creative director in the advertising world. At age 45, I jumped off the top of that mountain where I was very happily ensconced and appreciated, admired, jumped off it and started a business I knew absolutely nothing about. I found an abandoned stack of stone in English country house. I mean, I didn't grow up with English country houses. I'm from Coral Gables, Florida. I grew up in South Florida before air conditioning. Another planet. You know, there were dinosaurs in the road. I mean, it was, you know, you can't imagine living in the tropics without air conditioning. These days, people think, well, you couldn't possibly live. Of course we lived. We were perfectly happy. Nobody had it, so you didn't care about it. At any rate, I started a country inn conference center, and I worked 70 hours a week for 10 years to make it happen, and it happened. It became nationally famous, and it was great. I loved it. I loved and I was the innkeeper. I was hands-on. I was there at 7 o'clock every morning, and I stayed until the last person went to bed. And we were a restaurant. I was married 216 times. I did that many weddings. I could plan a wedding for 150 people in 45 minutes, but I'd let the mother of the bride spend 6 weeks doing it. It was okay. You know, it was.
Life has been good.
I've had fun. I've had fun. I still am having fun. I'm having fun every day. I'm doing things. I appeared in a local theater group. I'm giving speeches. I'm teaching workshops. I'm writing a book. You know, I'm running kills my friends with my mouth. I'm a director of my church and sing in the choir.
Oh, gosh.
So I'll be doing that tomorrow. Life is good. I'll tell you a story. I know you like to talk about people who have done different things, or they say amazing people, amazing things. I never thought of myself as an amazing person. I just thought I was an interested person. I was a curious person, and I was willing to try things, to crapshoot with my life now and then. For example, when I was age 36, and really life was very, very good for me in New York City, I accepted a job offer. My children were 9 and 11 at that point. I accepted a job offer to be creative director of J. Walter Thompson, the world's largest advertising agency, their office in Buenos Aires, Argentina, and moved the family 5,400 miles to live in a different language, a different culture, a different world for 4 years. And it was fascinating. And I wouldn't have given it up for anything. And I think that it helped our lives and certainly gave my children an international attitude. As they say to me now, and I thought it was the nicest compliment I could get as a father, they said, "You never bored us." And I think that's important. Your children, you really don't want to bore your children. You want them to feel that you are interesting and interested. I hope you are all devoted readers, because I've always said I really wouldn't mind being shipwrecked on a desert island as long as there was enough food there, maybe from another shipwreck, lots of food around, and a place that I could plug in my Kindle, so where I have like 1,500 books on my Kindle, and that way I could read all the time. I mean, there's never enough time to do all the reading you want to do. You all know her, Elizabeth Gilbert, who wrote Eat, Pray, Love. And I'm sure you've all read that. Everybody's read it or seen the movie. And she's a terrific, terrific woman. She's just brilliant. And one day she wrote a nonfiction book about living the creative life. And you don't have to be a writer or a painter or a composer or a chef or an architect to live a creative life. Statistics show that the low ebb of man's time on earth is about 48 to 52 in those ages. And that's where, I guess, the term midlife crisis, which didn't appear in scientific journals, I don't think, until the 20s or 30s. When that first appeared, it might have even been later, it might have been the 60s. At any rate, he realized that there was no place devoted to that to help people through what they call the messy middle, which are ages 35 to 75. So he created something called Modern Elder Academy.
Hey, I just want to take this time to say thank you very much for following, sharing, listening, all that good stuff, because it really does help with whatever algorithm is out there to build this community and this podcast channel. So if you're ready, let's get right back to the show with Jim.
Again, I just mentioned about the Cold War, World War II, civil rights and all that, and you grew up during that time, and then some technology. We had some technological errors here, but can you, before we get into your books and, telling folks about your books and everything, can you kind of give us your memories of that? Because I think that's important for people to realize about age and embracing your age, and about loving and living a long life, is you get to experience a lot of these things, good or bad, but they're experiences.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, looking back at my life, and I look at parts of it and think, was it better back then when we've had so many advances here? I mean, obviously we are going to live longer now because doctors are smarter, hospitals are much better, medicines have done magical things, machinery has changed for the MRIs, the scans, everything. So, and statistically they say that any child born today in a civilized country, 50% of them will live to the age of 100. That's a statistic, folks. So live with it, and the world's going to have to cope with what the hell do you do with all those elderly, and what is housing going to be, and what are finances going to be, and caregiving and all that. At any rate, growing up, in many ways, I look back and I think people talk, they've got high school drug deaths and pregnancies and everything. And life was a lot simpler and a lot easier. I grew up in a generation of yes, sir, no, ma'am.
Yes.
Right. And that's what you did. You didn't say to your parents, you're full of crap. I'm going to do what I want. No. That wasn't the way it was. We were all, not everybody was nice. Obviously, there were families with abusive parents. There were families that had alcoholics. Yes, there are always extremes. But the majority of people were just living their lives. And life was much simpler. I mean, we didn't have cell phones. We didn't have drugs. And I remember in high school, a group of people saying, "Did you hear somebody caught Paul smoking behind the gym?" I'm not kidding you. It was, and we were like, "Really? Smoking?" That wasn't part of life in the 1950s. I graduated from high school in 1953 and then went to University of Florida for 2 years and then transferred to Michigan State University, where I saw snow for the first time in my life at age 20. But, I think many of the problems with all of the wonderful advances we've had in life, especially in the tech world, that's one of the great problems of life. The tech world has made everything too visible. Everybody knows everything and they know it too soon. Cell phones, to walk down the street in New York, where you used to walk down the street and you didn't really do eye contact with everybody, but you'd walk along and now and then you might smile at somebody. You would see people. You would talk to them. Now, everybody's walking along like this. No one looks at anybody. And you get on a train and everybody is like this. And I think, well, going back to my commuting days, we all had a newspaper in front of us. In the commuter folds, where you're reading on 1/4 of the page, but I was memorizing the Herald Trib in those days, and then I switched to the New York Times. Herald Trib I liked better, actually. But there was direct communication between people, and now it's all email. On the other hand, appreciating technology, when I went away to school in my generation, you wrote one letter a week home to your parents, and you got one letter a week back from them. And that was the total of communication. Telephones were very expensive. Unless you came from a family with a lot of bucks, you did not make long-distance calls. That was a big deal. You didn't have a cell phone where you could call Portugal or call China. No.
You're right.
No.
I even, for me, remember it's collect call from Charles Tuck. Do you accept? Those kind of things. Don't worry about it.
Right. I mean, it was a very different life. Now I'm delighted. I'm grateful for that technology. One daughter has lived for 35 years in the UK. And once a week, we have at least a 30-minute talk on our phones. She'll make a Viber call to me so that we can look at each other, or we'll now and then with her sister who lives 3 hours away from me in Pennsylvania, we'll set up a Zoom call so the three of us can be together and talk. Then we try to we always get together at least once a year somewhere, either England or here or somewhere, But Yes, it was a very different world, and yes, I remember the war years. Of course, I was young during the war years. I was young when they were happening and when they ended. Um, but I remember the joy that I remember my mother being somebody who had to go out and make sure that the windows were blackened out at night. We had people in the neighborhood would check to make sure that it was all dark in case bombers were going to go overhead. Yeah, after those are silly remembrances, but then I think how again I come back to God, how fortunate we were as pardon me for saying it, as screwed up as our country can be at times and is right now. I'm not totally happy with everything going on, but how fortunate we've all been to have been born and raised in this country. Imagine even living in a beautifully civilized and a glorious city like London. London was bombed.
Yeah.
A lot. A lot. Can you imagine having bombs fall on your building? Can you imagine living with that? Forget the horrible the countries like Korea and Vietnam that have been ripped to shreds by wars. You know, other than maybe the worst war in history, the Civil War in this country, we've not had to live with hand-to-hand combat. So therefore, it's been a triple blessing. You know, the thought of it, the thought of us having to do that would be killing. And now all we can do is hope and pray that among the leaders of the world, and I don't think all of them have a full bottle of on their shelf upstairs, that they will all understand that, gee, if we get into a nuclear war, the world is destroyed. It won't be a matter of, oh, let's take out Boston this week. Oh, no. The world is over. That would end the world. So hopefully they are all smart enough to realize. But then I think back, and I certainly have no anti-Japanese feelings, because one of my grandsons has a beautiful Japanese wife, and I have a half-Japanese great-grandson, and he lives in Japan. But I think back in history, and I think a little tiny man on that little tiny island decided that he could take over America and bomb Pearl Harbor. I mean, there are people that go nuts, and I hope that none of us have to deal with that, other than deal with our own nuts.
Wait, we're starting to get political. we better reel it back.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't want to get political. I really don't want to get political. I've my whole life I've voted on both sides of the fence. I try to vote for the person.
Right. Yes.
Anyway, yeah, always. But yeah, we've gone through terrible things. I saw New York go through the AIDS crisis. That it went through a terrible crisis of crime on the streets, and I think it was Bloomberg and then Giuliani ended that. They were tough mayors, but they really did a good job in the city. And New York is confused right now. Many of the big cities in America are confused. I mean, if I owned a $1 zillion property in San Francisco and walked out and saw the whole block were people living in tents on the street,
Oh, yeah.
I would go nuts. You know, I live in a town of 2,400 people up in the boonies, and my home is a 1940 dairy barn that I converted. So it's wonderful. It still has all the posts and beams. So my living room was the hayloft. It's 34 feet high. So I love that because there's wonderful walls for art. And I'm totally spoiled. I have a swimming pool inside my house, which if you live in cold weather, why have outdoor pools are very pretty, but what the hell? You
Sure.
use them 2 months a year. I use mine every morning. 30
Jim,
minutes of
as long as you got rid of the knob and tube for your electricity and the, what is it, lath and plaster for your drywall or the walls, you're doing good.
Yeah, right. No, it's
Oh,
fine.
gosh.
It's fine.
Well, you're an author. You live, breathe everything writing, and you have some books right there behind you.
Mm-hmm.
Do they go in any type of chronological
Right.
order, or is it just okay?
Yeah, my first two books were pure fiction. Romance, sex, international travel, Broadway, fiction. Made up stories. And the first one I wrote was Role of a Lifetime, which I didn't think it when I was writing it, but then in later, many people have looked at it because it would make a terrific feature film or TV series. So I've had people talk to me about how can we make that adaptation, because I don't have the time to write a screenplay right now. But it basically is a modern day My Fair Lady. It's a contemporary My Fair Lady. It's not Eliza Doolittle selling flowers on the street. It's a Jewish girl in the Bronx who doesn't like her life and recreates herself. So but it's fun. And then Claire was about a different kind of woman, a woman who had it all. She was beautiful. She was perfect. She was a stockbroker. She had made a couple of wrong decisions in her life, but it's all about her life having it all. And then I switched as I got older and saw so many friends retreating from life, people who I knew when I'd known them in their 40s and 50s, even 60s, were sticks of dynamite, suddenly were, and I said, what? What are you doing? Why aren't you, I use one of my favorite lines. I said, the band won't stop playing till you stop dancing. So dance, for Christ's sake. Get up. Life is short. The old saying, which is very true, you are as old as you think. And if you think old, you get old. So therefore, you should think every day of, hot damn, if I've lived this long, that's a gift. And not all, we all have to cope with some DNA. Families are going to say, I'm sorry, you are going to have heart issues, or you have a family history of a lot of cancer, in which case go to the right clinic, try to find the right doctor, fight it. Because first you listen to the science and you do what they tell you, and the rest of it is mindset. It's you saying, no, damn it, I can beat that. I will get over that. I mean, we all have things. I had bladder cancer. I've had rotator cuff surgery. One day I got knocked over in Mexico and had bad surgery there. So I ended up having 3 surgeries on one leg in a 4-month period. But they're fine. They're temporary.
They're temporary setbacks, yes.
They go away. Temporary. It's not the rest of my life. I got over that. And so I've looked back on it and say, okay, what did I learn? I also had to take care of someone I loved dearly with dementia. And boy, if you become a caregiver, it's a blow to the mind, to the ego, to everything, because everything, your total focus becomes someone else. It's not what you really want to accomplish that day. It is how can you take care of them? How can you make their life better? And you can get through it, but again, it's a matter of saying, that's my goal for right now. Let's talk for one moment, if we can, Chuck, about the word purpose. Having purpose, or some people like the word goal better, but having a purpose in life is crucial to living. I recommend a wonderful book. I believe it's called The Power of Purpose, or The Importance of Purpose, by Richard Leider. It's a brilliantly written book, but with purpose, you can wake up with a smile every day because you have something to do. That's what I do by writing my note at night of the 6 or 7 things I want to do the next day. So that, one, I don't want to think about them during the night, and two, when I see that list in the morning, I jump at it and try to get those done right away. But and people say, well, how can you have one purpose your whole life? I said, you don't. Your purpose, your life goes through a series of transitions. You play, people hate to hear this sometimes, I say, you play many roles in your life. They say, I don't play any roles. I say, yes, you do. You're a college student. That's a role. You're a young married person. Young parent. My God, is that role playing? You're working. You become an an executive. Absolute role playing. You start a business. You move to a foreign country. They all require a different language, a different vocabulary, a different you. And so your goal, your purpose for being there every day changes along with that. God knows, when I went from corner office Manhattan to being an innkeeper in the boonies, working 70 hours a week to make sure that I was delivering what people were paying me for, which was perfect beauty, perfect food, absolute cleanliness, smiling staff. You know, you've never worked until you've had worked in hospitality, because you've got to deliver 24/7 all the time. It never stops. Okay, so your goals change. Then suddenly I found myself at age 80 for the first time in my life. No, older. But at age 85, I found myself for the first time in my life able to wake up in the morning and not say my wife's name or my children's names or the name of the business or my job or anything. I could wake up in the morning and say, what does Jim want to do today? So now my purpose, my goal is to accomplish a certain amount of things, which I have to finish this book that I'm working on right now. I'm also finishing a screenplay that I'm working on, and I did create an original TV series. I need an agent to help me do some of these things. I can't do it on my own. I know that. So I'm always looking for a meaningful agent, and I think it would be easier to get the Pope to come to a meeting in New York and bless my dinner than to find a meaningful agent. But it doesn't mean that I've stopped looking.
You know, everything that you're saying is so true, and especially about purpose. And I like that you use the word purpose instead of goal. And I've you know, in the past, I've always heard, do what you're doing with purpose. And I like having that sense of direction. That to me always meant I know where I'm going when I'm starting out, but it could change on the way there. But I've got that direction, but I've always accepted the fact that, hey, I may change along the way, but that's still, I'm headed in a direction. I've got a purpose. So rather than just, like I said, wake up and go, oh, and just wander. Because in that, to me, it was always a waste of time. And time, we can't get time back.
Right.
We can't buy it. Can't do any of that.
No. And also, it's very important, I think, by having a purpose and a goal, it allows you as a parent, because that's, if you are blessed with having children, if you wanted to have children, I say to many young couples, they say, we're not sure we want to have children. Then I say, then don't have them. Right. You know, because trust me, that's an obligation that doesn't go away. And your life is going to change drastically from that moment that you have that child. But if you want to have children and you have that obligation and blessing at the same time, then you have you always have that as one of your purposes in life, besides the other things going on, is Am I doing the right thing to help the kids grow into a life where they will have a purpose, or they will help them find a goal without being, as I can be, super controlling, judgmental, all those things that I know I am, and I really tried not to be that with the girls. They say very lovingly to me. My elder daughter said, a sweet father of 89 would just go to bed and not wake up and leave his children what money is left. But no, not you. You'll live forever and just despite us.
Oh gosh. This is a great segue right into your latest forthcoming book, right? About loving longevity.
Yeah, which is, I'm going to call it a follow-up to my last book, which was Embrace Your Age, You Can Be Better Than Ever. And these are not books that are written as novels. These are really written as, in Embrace Your Age, for example, every chapter asks a question, like, if you don't have a best friend, why should I bother with you? How are you going to handle it when they die? Do you exist? I'm trying to, the whole book is a conversation between Jim and you. It's not written as literary fiction. There's not a plot. It's, let's talk about that subject. And the new book, Loving Longevity, is more of the same. It's just based on, I'm changing. My purpose in life is changing. I'm learning more with age, and I'm seeing more things with other people, to seeing how age is affecting them. Because it does. It has a tremendous effect on people, and I'm amazed. I'm startled to talk to people, and I say, well, good. They say, oh, I'm so worried about what to do with everything if I die. And I said, well, you do have a will, right? Or you've put everything in trust. Oh, well, yeah, kind of. And have you talked to the kids about, well, no, not really. I said, really, who's going to be in charge? Your gardener or the plumber? I mean, what are you doing? You be orderly. I have everything in order. It's discussed. My children know what to do, and it's not going to be a matter of squabbling of who's in charge. They know, good, we'll continue doing this, we will do that, I don't have to lie there underground or in ashes wherever I am and say, look at the dumb, rotten little... No, they know exactly where we are. We've talked about it. People avoid, with age, they avoid talking about the necessities of life. And another problem, and all of you are going to have it with your parents, unless you're very, very fortunate, this is very typical, and you must learn to deal with it. Dad has died, or mom has died. Usually dad dies first. And there's mom, and she's in the house, and it's a 4 or 5 bedroom house, or maybe it's too isolated, it's too far out in the country, and her eyesight really isn't good enough for her driving. And she says, I'm fine, I don't need any help, and I'm not going to move. And you say, and then it's a huge, huge worry in your life. I took care of that myself. When I was 64, I said, something, we're not always going to be on top of the mountain, because I was on top of the mountain at 64, without a doubt. And I hired somebody. She's still with me 25 years later. I have a little, she's now shrunk, she turned 62 last week. So she's shrunk now to 4'11", little Mexican lady who's been with me 25 years and runs my life lovingly. My house is OR clean. The dogs are smiling. The gardener knows precisely what he has to do because she's out there telling him. I have brilliant food put in front of me. My friends all adore her, and they say, we don't care about you, but when you go, will you leave us a stare? Because I have everything done. But I made that decision. And of course, my daughters adore her because they have an 89-year-old father that, besides the fact that I am abnormally healthy, but they have an 89-year-old father they really don't have to worry about. I mean, they laughingly say, Kelly said last month, she said, Daddy dear, which I knew then she's getting into sarcasm the minute she gets that sweet. She said, Daddy dear, you can always come live with me. And I said, I'd rather take gas. She said, I know. I said, no, I like the way I live. I'm very happy with my life. But when the time comes, if I didn't have Esther, that's her name, Esther Lopez, if I did not have Esther, I would find a rehab center, an elderly residential center, which would have some nursing facilities nearby. They would have dining rooms. They would have housekeeping. They would take care of things because when you are older, you should not live alone. You really should not be alone. You need to have somebody around. You can fall, you see all the commercials all the time. Help, I can't get up, kind of all that stuff. You really should not be alone. You should have another human being who checks on you. She's here, but leaves me alone to get all my work done. I'm never bothered by the fact that it's here. If I'm in a meeting like right now, she could come in and check to make sure I have ice in my ice bucket because I drink seltzer during the day. But what she's really doing is checking on me. I know that. She's coming in to make sure that Senor Jim is all right. And it's terrific. It's very
sounds like a wonderful lady. And one thing that you said early on about your mind. Your mind plays a big role in a lot of this, I think, as far as how you perceive yourself, how you perceive the world, how you perceive things around you, which in turn is going to affect your health, your well-being, and all of that, I believe. And I think that's what you're getting to, too, is the mind plays a big role. Oh,
absolutely. I think mindset is half of it, if not more. It's how you, again, how you think of yourself, how you want to be. It's say, I remember when we were all facing the vaccines and the boosters, I said to myself, Jim, because some people were saying, God, I had terrible reactions to it. I said, you are not going to have any reactions to it because you're too busy. You can't do that. I never had a reaction to anything. Now, I don't know whether that was just my system. I don't have reaction to my yearly flu shot either, but I had absolutely no reaction. I mean, as far as I know, I was taking a baby aspirin because nothing happened at all.
There it is again, aging, baby aspirin. Who calls it baby aspirin? I know.
Well,
it's just
you're
funny
right,
because
you're right. Come on, Chuck, cut me some slack, will you?
It's just funny, Jim, because
I'm an old guy.
The words that you use, the phrases, and everything, are what I say. It's not an 83 milligram, aspirin, or take a piece of aspirin. I'm like a baby aspirin, and I still remember this sweet pink little baby aspirin. Oh gosh, this is great, Jim. I just want to make sure that people know where they can go to find you, where they could go to find your 4 books and your upcoming book.
If you could read my name there, that's my website also, all in one without spaces, jamesbflaherty.com. Okay? So if he has my name on the screen, you put the letter B in the middle, which is Bernard. JamesBFlaherty.com. That's my website. And you can learn all about the books, learn all about me, and I hope we have another chance to meet. I'm going to hopefully in the future be doing something with loving longevity. Also to have that as maybe it's something we can all talk about.
I'd love to have you back on the show because, again, you are a breath of fresh air, and we can all learn. And I because you act so young, it's hard for me to say we learn from our elders, but that it is so true. And hopefully the audience out there, if you're young enough and if you do have grandparents, you got your parents, but if you have grandparents around, talk to them.
Absolutely. Yes, I am elderly. I accept my age. I am elderly. Yes, I realize I'm more than most grandparents are. But I'd say to people, you were terribly funny in your 50s. Guess what? You're 75 now. You're still funny. You still can walk in a room and light up the room with your humor and with your point of view. And a lot of people just won't do it. They say, "Well, oh no, I'm getting old." Tell your grandparents, "Nah, come on, let's go do something. Let's be curious. Let's talk about things. Talk to them about literature and books. Get them to read some new books. It'll be good for them."
One thing I wanted to add for me for finishing out my part is you talked about role playing and everything. It's a role, but the one role that you don't have to play is you don't have to play that role of getting old. Not at all. Leave that one out.
Absolutely. I mean, just as you are as old as you feel, you are as young and as healthy and as vibrant as you feel also.
Yes.
Every day. It's to say every day, good God, another day.
Well, Mr. James B. Flaherty.com. You have been a wonderful guest, and I'm going to just say it right here on air. I just hope everything recorded the way it's supposed to be recorded.
If not, Chuck, give me a call. I would be happy to do it for you. It's a pleasure.
Well, I appreciate that because I think we can make it happen anytime, any day of the week, because we are that kind of guy.
Absolutely. I'm available to you anytime you need me. Thank
Thanks.
you all. Enjoyed meeting you.
Thank you very much.